Hornswoggle is the smallest wrestler in WWE history. Coming in at just 4 feet 1 inches, he completely disappeared between his massive opponents. But this never prevented him from turning into a WWE legend. From becoming a cruiserweight champion to challenging the 7 foot 1 inch Great Khali, Hornswoggle humiliated professional wrestlers for a living. But how did he achieve the impossible? And what made him so special? Well, to find out, we have to go back to the beginning. Dylan Mark Postel, more commonly known as the Little Bastard or Hornswoggle, was born on May 29, 1986 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. From an early age, Dylan suffered from dwarfism, and with a body like that, no one could have thought he'd one day become a wrestling phenomenon. But Dylan was obsessed with it, because long before he could even walk, he was hooked on pro wrestling. He and his older brother Clint would be glued to the screen whenever Bret Hart or Adam Bomb came in. The flash, the charm, the fights, they were enough to make him dream. And luckily, no one in his family ever tried to stop him. His parents didn't hold him back. They didn't tell him it was unrealistic. What did concern his family, though, was his health. Dylan was born with a form of dwarfism that led to serious back issues for him as a child. He had surgery when he was young that left him paralyzed for 6 months. And it was scary. After a long recovery, doctors gave him strict instructions. No trampolines, no roughhousing, and definitely no contact sports. They warned that if he pushed his body too far, the consequences could be serious. But Dylan didn't let that stop him. When he was just 13, he went to his first independent wrestling show in his hometown. It was clearly a small, local event, but to Dylan, it was something big, something larger than life. Watching that show made something click in him, and just like that, he started a backyard wrestling league with his homies. They used whatever they had: foam, WWE belts, printer paper with hand-drawn logos, and everything DIY. It was just a small group of kids messing around, but surprisingly, this league pulled in crowds by the hundreds. It was truly crazy. Even cops would show up because the street corner got really busy. Through this, Dylan got connected with a local independent wrestling company called ACW and started formal training when he was still in his teens. He worked tirelessly, acted big, and became what the world told him he would never be: an actual wrestler, instead of just some midget wrestler. At just 20 years old, he packed his bags, left college, and signed with WWE, only to make the most unconventional debut ever. Dylan's WWE debut wasn't flashy. No music, no lights, no big entrance. He didn't even walk down the ramp. On a random episode of SmackDown in May 2006, Dylan just crawled out from under the ring, and the world finally met Little Bastard, the leprechaun partner of the tough Northern Irish wrestler Finlay, who clearly did justice to the folklore. It was crazy. He was small, fast, and totally wild. One second, Finlay was in trouble, and the next, this little guy would come flying out from under the ring. He did whatever it took to help Finlay win. It was funny, chaotic, and completely different from anything else on the show. The Little Bastard definitely stood out, but this name was pushing the line. Although he was a cartoon come to life, WWE didn't want to take any risks. So in early 2007, they changed it quietly. Dylan became Hornswoggle, a cheater, a trickster, which is exactly what his character did. By then, Hornswoggle had a clear role. He wasn't a full-time wrestler. He was the surprise guy who popped out of nowhere to distract the opponent and help Finlay win. That was his job, and he nailed it. And the truth is, the team with Finlay made it all work. Finlay was serious, respected, and tough. Hornswoggle was wild and goofy, but with Finlay, he had to be grounded. This is why they were perfect together. They brought balance to the ring. Not only this, but behind the scenes, Finlay also prepared Dylan for something bigger: how to build a match, how to tell a story, and how to handle life backstage. And all of this helped. Hornswoggle became wiser and a better wrestler. But there had to be more to Hornswoggle. He couldn't just be a comic relief. he had to be destined for something greater, right? Well, he definitely was. WWE started putting him in bigger storylines, serious ones, and suddenly this little fantasy character who used to live under the ring was carrying big moments on his own. McMahon's illegitimate son, WWE Cruiserweight Champion 2007, Anonymous Raw GM. All of these were big moments for him, and as a hardcore fan, I have to tell you about my favorites. At the top of my list, I have the year 2007. I think 2007 was his year because that year, WWE set up one of the biggest mysteries in its history. Who was Mr. McMahon's illegitimate son? The entire WWE fan base was biting their nails, waiting for this big reveal. People loved to hate Vince, and this was their chance to hate him harder. And when it finally came, no one saw it coming. Hornswoggle was Vince McMahon's son. What? This storyline was too funny to be true. But what's funnier is how it was revealed. As much as Triple H liked to laugh, this was a monumental moment for Hornswoggle. He was a son. But this is not all. Hornswoggle had more than one moment that proved just how big an impact he could make. At the Great American Bash in 2007, he surprised everyone by winning the Cruiserweight. No one even knew he was in the match until he pinned Jamie Noble, making him the final champion of the title. While WWE soon retired the Cruiserweight Championship, Hornswoggle's win became one of the most memorable moments in its history. He showed that even the smallest guy could leave the biggest mark. Little by little, things got even better for him. The Anonymous Raw General Manager storyline from June 2010 to July 2011 was a much crazier storyline. WWE had fans guessing for over a year. Everyone was trying to figure out who was behind the mysterious GM emails. This storyline could have been eye-popping, but when the reveal finally came, it turned out to be Hornswoggle. Now don't get me wrong, I am a fan, but WWE got us worked up for no reason at all. Even Hornswoggle himself said the payoff didn't quite live up to the build-up, but WWE fans knew hyperbole is wrestling's second name, so they let this one slide.
Not probably, this is easily the worst time in my run with WWE. Like the most frustrating, most just like, man, why am I here kind of time with the company.
Further, in 2007, the Survivor Series saw a truly epic moment. This unique match became one of the most memorable ones ever. Hornswoggle faced off against the great Khali. He is 7 foot 1 inch, a gigantic body, and the match was quickly dubbed the largest mismatch in WWE history. Despite the clear size difference, Hornswoggle put up a brave fight. I'd give him props. He wasn't afraid to try and take on Khali, and for a while it seemed like he might have a chance. Yet the size and power of Khali were just too much for Hornswoggle to handle. But Hornswoggle truly got even better when he eliminated Tyson Kidd at the 2011 Royal Rumble. That day he was solid. Guys, this wasn't an accident. WWE showed that Dylan could actually wrestle. And with matches like this one, even bulky dudes started fearing his tricks. He was big by now, but what made him truly destructive? Well, he was fast, agile, wise, and a secret plotter. He outshone everyone with his plotting, and everyone loved to hate him for it. Everywhere he went, even the biggest, toughest wrestlers seemed to shrink when he was around. His presence was too loud, and he could turn any man's ego into the punchline of a joke. Take his feud with the Great Khali, for example. Khali was huge. He was meant to be a threat in the WWE. But when he was paired with Hornswoggle in a comedy feud, things went way off track. People stopped taking Khali seriously, and the whole thing felt like a wasted opportunity to develop Khali as a serious character. Fans saw it, and so did the wrestlers. They were afraid to be linked with him and saw him as bad luck. As much as Hornswoggle was a fan favorite for his comedy, his role also led to resentment backstage. Many wrestlers felt like their hard work was being overshadowed by a character who wasn't even taken seriously in the ring. Some even saw Hornswoggle as an example of WWE using the same gimmicks over and over again, to the point where they started to drag the show down. He became such a big threat to other wrestlers that they packaged him as a liability. What a waste of talent. When Hornswoggle eventually left WWE, it was almost unnoticed. There wasn't a huge farewell or a big storyline exit. His time in the company simply faded away. He actually left in May 2016 after a decade-long career in the company, and to be honest, he deserved better. Hornswoggle's release from WWE came at a time when the company was looking to refresh its roster and move away from certain storylines. In an interview, Hornswoggle said that WWE fired him and his good friend El Torito around the same time to keep things consistent. Both of them played similar roles in the company, and WWE probably felt like it was time to make a change. Despite leaving WWE, Hornswoggle wasn't done with wrestling. He continued to perform on the independent circuit under the ring name Swoggle. His in-ring presence didn't disappear. In fact, he went on to make appearances for other major promotions, including Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and even AEW. He also dabbled in boxing in 2021 by participating in a Rough and Rowdy event. He's a true athlete. Even though Hornswoggle took a break from the wrestling spotlight, he never fully left WWE. In 2018, he came back for the Greatest Royal Rumble, and then again in 2019 for the Royal Rumble. These appearances weren't just about reliving the past. They showed that WWE and its fans still valued Hornswoggle's character and legacy. Finally, in 2025, he made a big return during WrestleMania 41 weekend in Las Vegas. It had been a few years since he last appeared as Hornswoggle, and fans were excited to see him. What a comeback. Outside of wrestling, Hornswoggle's been having fun making content online. He runs a YouTube channel under his real name, Dylan Postel, where he shares interviews, vlogs, and toy unboxings. It's a laid-back way for fans to see what he's like off-screen. Also in 2021, he started a podcast called Going Postal. He talks about his time in wrestling and opens up about his life outside the ring there. Lately, he's also been stepping into acting, and he's got a role in a short film called Cadillac Respect, which is expected to come out in 2026. Hornswoggle's legacy in WWE is pretty unique. He spent a solid decade in a company full of giants, which is no small feat for someone with dwarfism. What made him stand out was his willingness to take risks and play some pretty wild roles. It's crazy now that we think of it. WWE truly pushed his storyline, and that's a big win for anyone who is different. Looking back, Dylan sees a lot of these moments as the high points of his career. He said that the Vince McMahon storyline was the biggest thing to ever happen to him, and he holds it close to his heart. He's really proud of his time in WWE, mostly because it gave him a chance to live out his dream, take care of his family, and do things he never thought would happen. Even when the storylines were slammed by fans, he kept focusing on the fact that he was on TV, and those moments meant a lot to him personally. But there's one more interesting angle that I don't want you to miss. The way Hornswoggle feels about his career doesn't always line up with how fans and critics saw it. A lot of the biggest storylines he was part of, like the McMahon paternity reveal and the anonymous GM twists, are often considered some of WWE's worst creative choices. His Cruiserweight Championship win is also seen by some as the final nail in the coffin for that division. For many fans, his character became a symbol of everything wrong with WWE storytelling at the time. Still, no matter what fans think, Hornswoggle's legacy goes beyond the storylines he was involved in. He was a guy who worked hard and took whatever role was handed to him. His ability to stay relevant and adapt over the years is a big part of his success. Even though he was in some storylines that didn't go over well with fans, he managed to make himself memorable. He became a known name in WWE, and that says a lot. Despite some of these controversies, his peers have praised Hornswoggle for his energy and professionalism. Even when he was used as a punchline, he still managed to make an impact and excel in his performances. For a decade, Hornswoggle was a constant on WWE programming. That's something not many can say. He doesn't focus on the negatives. He's just grateful for the opportunity to do what he loved. Whether fans loved or hated the storylines, Hornswoggle left his mark on WWE. And that little leprechaun-sized mark is something that won't be forgotten. But while it's crazy that the smallest wrestler in the history of the WWE had such an impact, did you know that there was also a skinny teenager who absolutely humiliated the WWE Elite? To find out more about that, click on the video on the screen right now.